The proposition rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows like tears, blurring the Seattle skyline into watercolor smudges. Victoria Sterling pressed her palms against the cold leather armrest, fighting the urge to run from this glass tower that made her feel impossibly small. Nathan Cross stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath Italian wool. The Olympic Mountains rose beyond him, peaks swallowed by fog that seemed to mirror the secrets she sensed lurking beneath his perfectly tailored exterior. "I need a wife." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and impossible. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. "Excuse me? Not a real wife." Nathan's reflection ghosted across the window. "A contract. 6 months. My board believes a married CEO projects stability. I have a merger that depends on their confidence." Thunder rumbled overhead. Victoria's mind spun, trying to reconcile this morning's reality of heating canned soup for breakfast with sitting in a penthouse office listening to the most insane proposal of her life. "You're joking." "I don't joke about business." Nathan turned, and something raw flickered across his features before his mask slipped back into place. "The compensation is $2 million. Half up front, half upon completion." The number hit her like a physical blow. Her father's medical bills, the farm drowning in debt, student loans that strangled her every month. Everything could disappear with a signature. Why me? Nathan moved closer. She caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her pulse quicken despite herself. "You have no social media presence, no complicated past relationships. You're beautiful enough to be believable, but not famous enough to attract unwanted attention." The clinical assessment stung. "You don't know anything about me." "I know you're desperate." His green eyes held hers steadily. "I know you've been unemployed for 8 months. I know your father needs surgery your family can't afford. I know you're 26 years old and living in a shared apartment because you can't make rent on your own." Heat flooded Victoria's cheeks. The thoroughness of his research felt like a violation, stripping away every pretense of dignity she had left. "You had me investigated. I investigate everyone I do business with. This isn't business. It's insane." Nathan returned to his desk, pulling out a thick folder. "The contract outlines everything. Public appearances, social events, media interviews. You would move into my penthouse immediately. Separate bedrooms, of course. The marriage would be professional in every way." Victoria stared at the folder as if it might bite her. Everything about this was wrong, dangerous, completely crazy. But $2 million. Her father's face flashed through her mind, the way he tried to hide his pain during their last video call, insisting the medical bills weren't her responsibility. "What's the catch?" "No catch, just discretion and commitment to the role." "There's always a catch with men like you." Something dark crossed Nathan's expression. "Men like me? Powerful. Used to getting what you want." Victoria stood, surprised by her own boldness. You could have any woman in Seattle. Why construct an elaborate fake marriage? "What aren't you telling me?" For a moment, Nathan's composed facade cracked, and she glimpsed something wounded beneath. "Some things can't be bought, Miss Sterling. Trust, for instance. With you, I know exactly where we stand." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the confident billionaire from magazine covers. This was a man with secrets, carrying burdens she couldn't begin to imagine. "I need time to think." "You have until tomorrow morning." Nathan slid the folder across his desk. "Read the contract. David will arrange your transportation back to Portland." Victoria picked up the folder, its weight somehow heavier than it should have been. She reached the elevator when Nathan's voice stopped her. "Miss Sterling," she turned. For a heartbeat, his carefully constructed armor fell away entirely. "I hope you say yes." The elevator doors closed between them, but his words echoed in the small space. During the drive back to Portland, Victoria clutched the folder and stared out at the rain-soaked landscape. She thought about her father's hands, weathered from decades of farm work, trembling as he signed mortgage papers for medical expenses. That night, she sat at her tiny kitchen table, the contract spread before her like a map to an unknown country. Every page outlined a life that wasn't hers, a role she would have to inhabit completely. But at the bottom of the final page, a single line made her breath catch. In case of breach of contract by Nathan Cross, Victoria Sterling would receive full compensation, plus an additional $5 million. What kind of man wrote a contract that protected his fake wife more than himself? What was Nathan Cross so afraid of that he would pay $7 million to keep it hidden? Victoria picked up her phone and dialed the number on David Kim's business card. When he answered, she could hear the tension in his voice, as if he'd been waiting for her call. "I'll do it," she said before she could change her mind. The silence stretched so long she thought the call had dropped. "I'll have a car pick you up at 7 tomorrow morning," David finally said, and there was something like relief in his voice. "Bring everything you can't live without. You won't be coming back to Portland for a very long time." After hanging up, Victoria stared at her reflection in the black window. Tomorrow, Victoria Sterling would cease to exist. In her place would be someone else entirely. Someone strong enough to stand beside Nathan Cross and convincing enough to sell the greatest lie of both their lives. She had no idea that by agreeing to his proposition, she had just signed away more than 6 months of her life. The Performance Nathan's penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, glass walls offering a 360 view of Seattle that made Victoria feel like she was living inside the sky. The morning after her arrival, she stood in what was now her bedroom, surrounded by designer clothes that had appeared overnight like expensive armor. "The stylist will be here in an hour," David announced from the doorway. "Your first public appearance is tonight, the Children's Hospital benefit at the Grand Hyatt." Victoria fingered the silk of a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe combined. "How many people will be there?" 800 of Seattle's most prominent citizens, plus media. David's expression softened slightly. "It's going to be overwhelming." "I can handle overwhelming." The lie tasted bitter. 3 hours later, Victoria barely recognized herself in the full-length mirror. The woman staring back had sleek hair cascading over one shoulder, makeup that made her eyes seem larger and more mysterious, a dress that transformed her from desperate college graduate into someone who belonged in Nathan Cross's world. "Perfect," Nathan said from behind her. She turned to find him adjusting platinum cufflinks, his black tuxedo making him look dangerously handsome. "You look like you were born for this." Appearances can be deceiving. Indeed they can, something flickered in his eyes as he approached. "There's something we need to discuss before tonight." He pulled out a small velvet box. Victoria's heart stopped. The engagement ring inside was breathtaking. A flawless diamond surrounded by emeralds that caught the light like captured stars. "It was my grandmother's," Nathan said quietly, taking her hand. The moment his skin touched hers, that same electric shock ran up her arm. "She would have liked you. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you agreed to help a stranger save his company, without asking what you'd have to sacrifice." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. "That tells me everything I need to know." The weight of the ring felt like a chain. "Beautiful but binding. What's our story? How did we meet?" "University of Washington. You were studying marketing. I was finishing my MBA. We dated secretly for 3 years, then reconnected 6 months ago." Nathan's thumb traced across her knuckles, and Victoria had to force herself to breathe. "The board knew nothing about our relationship until now, because you were building your career in Portland." "And were madly in love?" "Completely devoted." Nathan's voice dropped to a whisper. "So much so that we couldn't wait another day to announce our engagement." The Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered like a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in ivory silk. Victoria had never seen so much wealth concentrated in one room, and the weight of everyone's attention pressed against her like a physical force. "Nathan Cross and his mystery fiancé," a woman's voice carried across the room. "I never thought I'd see the day." Nathan's hand tightened on Victoria's waist as they approached their table. She recognized several faces from magazine covers, tech moguls and political figures, whose smiles seemed as sharp as their diamond jewelry. "Victoria Sterling," Nathan said to a silver-haired man who rose to greet them. "This is Senator William Hartley." "The woman who finally tamed Seattle's most eligible bachelor," the senator said, raising Victoria's hand to his lips. "You must have quite the story." "Every love story is unique," Victoria replied, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. Throughout dinner, she fielded questions about their relationship with answers that felt like improvised lines in a play she'd never rehearsed. Nathan played his role perfectly. touching her hand at just the right moments, laughing at her nervous jokes, even pressing a gentle kiss to her temple when photographers approached. But it was when they took the stage for the charity auction that everything went wrong. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan addressed the crowd, his arm around Victoria's waist. "Before we begin tonight's auction, I wanted to share some wonderful news. Victoria has agreed to become my wife." The applause was thunderous, but Victoria barely heard it. Her eyes had locked onto a familiar figure at a corner table, partially hidden by shadows, but unmistakable. Marcus Chen, her ex-boyfriend from college. The one who had disappeared from her life without explanation 3 years ago, leaving her broken and suspicious of every man who followed. Marcus raised his champagne glass in a mocking toast. Her blood turned to ice. "Are you all right?" Nathan whispered in her ear as they returned to their seats. "Fine," she managed, but her hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Victoria smiled and nodded at appropriate moments, but her attention kept drifting to Marcus's table. Every time she looked, he was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. As the evening wound down, Nathan was pulled aside by a group of investors, leaving Victoria momentarily alone. That's when Marcus struck. "Hello, Victoria." She turned to find him standing directly behind her chair, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn in college. He looked older, more polished, wearing a tuxedo that suggested his circumstances had improved considerably. "Marcus." She kept her voice level despite the panic clawing at her chest. "What are you doing here?" "I work for Blackstone Dynamics now. We're bidding on the same government contracts as Cross Dynamics." His smile was cold, calculating. "Imagine my surprise when I saw the engagement announcement." "It's complicated. I'm sure it is." Marcus leaned closer, and Victoria fought the urge to recoil. "Especially since you were crying over me in your dorm room just 3 years ago, begging me not to leave." The memory hit her like a slap. Those final months of college when Marcus had become increasingly distant, eventually disappearing entirely without explanation. She'd blamed herself, wondered what she'd done wrong, carried that rejection like a wound that never properly healed. That was a long time ago. Not that long. Marcus straightened his cufflinks, a gesture that reminded her painfully of Nathan. "I hope your fiancé knows what he's getting. You always were good at pretending to be something you're not." Before Victoria could respond, Nathan appeared at her side like a guardian angel in an expensive suit. "I don't believe we've met," Nathan said, but there was steel beneath his polite tone. "Marcus Chen, Blackstone Dynamics." Marcus extended his hand, but Nathan didn't take it. "I was just congratulating Victoria on her engagement." "How do you know my fiancé?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. One wrong word and everything would unravel. "We went to college together," she said quickly. "It's been years." "How nice that you could reconnect." Nathan's arm slid around her waist, possessive and protective. "If you'll excuse us, it's been a long evening." As Nathan guided her toward the exit, Victoria felt Marcus's eyes burning into her back. In the elevator, Nathan's hand remained on her waist, but his expression had gone cold and distant. Who was that really? Victoria's throat tightened. The elevator seemed to shrink around them. An ex-boyfriend. From college. He left without explanation, and I never heard from him again. Until tonight. And he works for Blackstone. Nathan's jaw clenched. Our biggest competitor for the Meridian contract. A $20 billion deal that could make or break both companies. "You think that's why he approached me?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I think nothing about tonight was coincidence." The elevator doors opened to the penthouse. Nathan walked straight to the bar and poured himself 3 fingers of scotch. "There's something you need to know," he said without turning around. "Something I should have told you before you signed the contract." Victoria's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Nathan drained his glass in one swallow. "Blackstone Dynamics is run by my half-brother. We haven't spoken in 10 years, not since he tried to destroy my father's company and nearly succeeded. This merger, this entire performance, It's not just about bored confidence. He turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes was so raw it stole her breath. It's about proving I'm nothing like him, that I can build something real, something lasting, without burning everything to the ground. And the fake wife helps with that. How? Because he has everything. A wife, children, the perfect family to present to investors. And I have nothing. Nathan's voice cracked. I've spent 10 years building Cross Dynamics, and he spent 10 years trying to tear it down. If I lose this merger, I lose everything. Victoria moved closer, her heels clicking against marble. What's his name? Your brother? Nathan met her eyes and she saw the answer before he spoke. Richard Chen. The room tilted. Marcus's last name is Chen. I know. Nathan poured another drink. I pulled his file after he approached you. Marcus Chen, junior analyst at Blackstone Dynamics. Hired 6 months ago. Directly reports to my brother. Victoria's mind raced. Marcus had disappeared from her life 3 years ago. Now he worked for Nathan's half-brother. Now he'd appeared at their engagement announcement. You think Richard sent him to sabotage us? I think Marcus Chen dated you in college for a reason. I think he left you when the timing was convenient. And I think his appearance tonight was a message. Nathan's hand trembled as he set down his glass. My brother doesn't play fair. If he knows about our arrangement, if he can prove this marriage is fake, the merger falls apart. The board loses confidence. Cross Dynamics becomes vulnerable to a hostile takeover. And Marcus knows me, knows my weaknesses. Victoria felt sick. He could expose everything. Unless we make this real enough that even he can't tell the difference. Nathan crossed the room until he stood directly in front of her. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the scotch on his breath. What are you saying? I'm saying the contract just changed. I'm saying we need to be more convincing than I ever anticipated. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. I'm saying that starting tomorrow, we can't afford to be strangers living separate lives. Victoria's heart raced. His touch sent electricity through her veins, awakening something she'd kept buried since Marcus shattered her ability to trust. How convincing. Nathan's eyes dropped to her lips. Convincing enough that when my brother tries to destroy us, he finds nothing but the truth. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. For a moment, Victoria thought he might kiss her, thought she might let him. But instead, Nathan stepped back, the moment breaking like shattered glass. Get some rest. Tomorrow, everything changes. He walked toward his bedroom, leaving Victoria standing alone in the vast living room, her reflection ghosting across the floor-to-ceiling windows. The diamond ring on her finger caught the city lights, sparkling like a warning. She had thought this was just a business arrangement. 6 months of pretending, then freedom, but nothing about Nathan Cross was simple. And now, with Marcus Chen circling like a predator and a half-brother bent on destruction, Victoria realized she'd stepped into a war she didn't understand, one where the casualty might be her heart. The unraveling 3 weeks passed in a blur of public appearances and private silences. Victoria learned to smile through cocktail parties, to navigate conversations with tech executives and politicians, to play the role of devoted fiancé, so convincingly she sometimes forgot it was a lie. But the nights were harder. Nathan worked late most evenings. His study door closed against her, the glow of his laptop screen visible through the crack underneath. They shared breakfast in strained politeness, their conversations limited to upcoming events and necessary logistics. The only time he touched her was in public, and even then, Victoria felt the careful distance he maintained, as if he was afraid of what might happen if he let himself get too close. Until the night Marcus sent the photographs. Victoria was in the kitchen making tea when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost deleted it, but curiosity won. The first photo showed her and Marcus in college, laughing at some forgotten joke, his arm around her shoulders. The second showed them kissing outside her dorm. The third was dated 3 months ago, a clear fake, digitally altered to show them together in a coffee shop. The message below was simple. Tell Nathan the truth, or I will. You have 48 hours. Victoria's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. What's wrong? She spun to find Nathan standing in the doorway, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, exhaustion written across his features. Nothing. Just spam. But Nathan crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and took the phone from her trembling hands. She watched his expression go from confusion to fury as he scrolled through the images. When did he send these? Just now, Nathan's jaw clenched. The 3rd photo is fake. Anyone with basic forensic skills could tell. But it doesn't matter, does it? The first 2 are real. They prove Marcus and I have history. If he tells your board we're connected, if he suggests I'm feeding him information about cross dynamics, the merger falls apart. You're not feeding him anything. They won't care about the truth. They'll care about the optics. Victoria's voice cracked. This is exactly what your brother wanted. He planted Marcus in my life years ago, waiting for the perfect moment to use him against you. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the photos. There's only one way to handle this. What? We call his bluff. Nathan set down the phone and turned to face her fully. Tomorrow night, there's a private dinner at the Rainier Club. Every major player in Seattle tech will be there, including Richard. We show up together more in love than ever, and we make it clear that nothing Marcus Chen says will shake us. And if he shows the photos, then we own it. You had a boyfriend in college. So what? Everyone has a past. Nathan's hand came up to cup her face, the gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. What matters is our present. What matters is that when Richard tries to tear us apart, he finds nothing but solid ground. Victoria leaned into his touch before she could stop herself. For weeks, they'd been playing this game of careful distance, but standing here in the quiet of the kitchen, she realized the walls between them had started to crumble. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she whispered. "This is a business arrangement. You don't owe me comfort." Nathan's thumb traced her cheekbone, his green eyes searching hers. "Maybe I stopped seeing this as business 3 weeks ago." Before Victoria could respond, before she could process what that meant, Nathan's phone rang. He stepped back, the moment breaking, and answered with a clipped greeting. She watched his expression shift from irritation to shock to something that looked like grief. "I understand. I'll be there within the hour." He hung up and stood frozen, staring at nothing. "Nathan? My father just had a heart attack. He's at Seattle General." Nathan's voice was hollow. "They don't know if he'll make it through the night." Victoria didn't think. She grabbed her coat and keys. "I'm coming with you. You don't have to do this. It's not part of the contract. Forget the damn contract." The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Nathan sat with his head in his hands, still wearing his work clothes, tie loosened and hanging askew. Victoria had never seen him look so vulnerable, so utterly lost. "He hasn't regained consciousness," Nathan said quietly. "The doctors say the next few hours are critical." Victoria sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Tell me about him." He built Cross Dynamics from nothing. Started in a garage, worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed everything to give me and Richard a better life. Nathan's voice was thick with emotion. "After my mother died, he was all we had, and Richard destroyed him. Stole company secrets, tried to stage a hostile takeover, turned half the board against him. My father never recovered from that betrayal." "Is that why you haven't spoken to your brother in 10 years? He chose power over family. I couldn't forgive that." The door opened and a doctor emerged, his expression grave. "Mr. Cross, your father is stable, but he's asking to see you, and he's asking for your brother." Nathan's entire body went rigid. "Richard is here? He arrived 10 minutes ago. He's in the waiting room." Victoria felt Nathan's hand find hers, gripping so tightly it almost hurt. "Do you want me to come with you? Please." The waiting room felt like a battlefield. Richard Chen stood by the window, older than Victoria expected, with the same sharp features as Nathan, but a coldness in his eyes that made her skin crawl. "Nathan." Richard's voice was devoid of warmth. "It's been a long time. Not long enough." Nathan's hand remained locked around Victoria's. "What are you doing here?" "He's my father, too. Despite what you think, I never stopped caring about him. You nearly killed him 10 years ago. I made business decisions, difficult ones. That doesn't mean I wanted him dead." The doctor cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, your father doesn't have much time. Whatever grievances you have, I suggest you set them aside." Nathan moved toward the ICU, But Richard's voice stopped him. Is this her? The fake fiancé? Victoria felt Nathan stiffen beside her. Excuse me? Don't insult my intelligence. Marcus told me everything. The contract, the arrangement, the desperate girl from Portland who sold herself for $2 million. Richard's smile was cruel. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Victoria is my fiancé. The circumstances of our relationship are none of your concern. The board will care, especially when they learn you've been lying to them for weeks. Richard stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw from the Meridian merger. You're going to step down as CEO, and if you cooperate, I'll keep your little secret. Victoria felt rage flood through her, hot and righteous. And if we don't? Richard turned his attention to her, his gaze raking over her like she was something he might scrape off his shoe. Then I expose everything. The fake engagement, the contract, the fact that you're nothing but a hired actress playing dress-up. Cross Dynamics loses the merger, the stock price crashes, and Nathan loses everything his father built, all because he was too proud to admit he needed help. You're blackmailing your own brother while your father is dying down the hall? I'm offering him a way out. Nathan's voice when he spoke was deadly quiet. Get out. Nathan, be reasonable. Get out before I have security remove you. Richard's expression hardened. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I go to the board. He left, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Victoria felt Nathan trembling beside her, his careful control finally shattering. I'm going to lose everything. The company, the merger, my father's legacy, everything. Victoria turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. Not if we beat him at his own game. How? He has proof. Marcus has been building a case against us for weeks. Then we give him something he can't argue with. Victoria's heart raced, but her voice was steady. We make it real. Nathan stared at her, confusion and hope warring in his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying we don't wait 6 months. We get married now, tonight, before Richard can expose anything. We turn the contract into reality so completely that there's no lie left to uncover. Victoria, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his green eyes. These past 3 weeks, I've watched you. The way you care for the people who work for you. The way you never take credit you haven't earned. The way you've been kind to me even when you didn't have to be. This started as a business arrangement. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. At least for me. Nathan's hand came up to cradle her face. And this time, there was no careful distance, no practiced performance. You would marry me? Really marry me? Knowing my brother will never stop trying to destroy us? Knowing your life will never be the same? Victoria thought about her father's medical bills, still unpaid. She thought about Marcus's cruel smile and Richard's blackmail. She thought about all the logical reasons to walk away. But when she looked at Nathan, she saw past the billionaire CEO to the man beneath. The one who'd written a contract to protect her more than himself. The one who'd held her hand in a hospital corridor. The one who'd looked at her like she mattered. I would marry you for real. Not because of the contract, not because of the money. Because in 3 weeks, you've shown me what trust looks like again. And I think maybe we could build something worth protecting. Nathan kissed her then, and it wasn't gentle or careful. It was desperate and raw, weeks of restrained longing finally breaking free. Victoria kissed him back, pouring 3 years of loneliness and hurt into the connection, finding something solid to hold on to in the chaos. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, there's no going back. It won't be a performance anymore. I know, and I'm still going to have enemies. Still going to have a brother who wants to destroy me. Your life will be complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you dreamed. I stopped dreaming safe dreams a long time ago. Nathan pulled out his phone, already dialing. David, I need you to arrange a private ceremony. Tonight. And find me a judge who owes me a favor. He hung up and turned back to Victoria, his hand finding hers. No more contracts. No more performances. Just us against whatever comes next. Just us, Victoria agreed. The door to the ICU opened and a nurse appeared. Mr. Cross, your father is asking for you both now. They walked in together, hand in hand, to face Nathan's father. The old man looked frail against the white sheets, tubes and monitors surrounding him like technological guardians. "Nathan." His voice was barely a whisper. "You brought her. Dad, this is Victoria. My fiancée." The old man's eyes found hers, sharp despite his weakened state. "Richard told me about the contract, about the arrangement." Victoria's heart stopped. Nathan's hand tightened around hers. "Dad, he also told me it was fake, that you were lying to the board, to me, to everyone." The old man's lips curved into a slight smile. "But I've been watching you two through that window for the past hour. The way you hold each other, the way you look at each other when you think no one's watching, and I know my son well enough to know when he's pretending." He reached out a trembling hand and Victoria took it. "Whatever this started as, it's real now. I can see it. Your brother can't because he's forgotten what love looks like. But I haven't." His eyes moved to Nathan. "Marry her, tonight. Don't wait for my blessing or the board's approval or anything else. Life is too short and too precious to waste on fear." "We're already planning to," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Good." The old man squeezed Victoria's hand. "Take care of my stubborn son. God knows he needs someone strong enough to handle him." "I will," Victoria promised. They sat with him for another hour, talking quietly about nothing and everything until the nurse insisted he needed rest. As they left the ICU, Victoria felt the weight of what they'd committed to settling over her like a second skin. In 12 hours, she would be married. For real this time. No contract to hide behind, no escape clause, no expiration date. Just her and Nathan against a brother bent on destruction, an ex-boyfriend turned spy, and a corporate war that could consume them both. She should have been terrified. Instead, walking through the hospital corridor with Nathan's hand warm in hers, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Hope, the betrayal. They were married at midnight in Nathan's penthouse, with only David Kim and a sleep-deprived judge as witnesses. Victoria wore a simple ivory dress David had somehow procured, and Nathan never took his eyes off her as they exchanged vows that felt both impossibly real and surreal. "I, Nathan Cross, take you, Victoria Sterling, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part." His voice didn't waver. His hand didn't tremble as he slid a platinum band next to his grandmother's ring. When it was Victoria's turn, she looked into his eyes and saw her future reflected back. "I, Victoria Sterling, take you, Nathan Cross, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part." The judge pronounced them married, and Nathan kissed her like he was sealing a promise he intended to keep forever. They didn't sleep that night. Instead, they sat on the balcony watching the sun rise over Seattle, drinking coffee and talking about everything except what would happen when morning truly came. Nathan told her about his mother, about growing up with a brother who slowly became a stranger. Victoria told him about the farm, about her father's pride, about the weight of carrying a family's dreams. By the time the city woke up, they'd built something fragile and precious between them. Something that felt worth protecting. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Nathan went in alone while Victoria waited in his office, pacing the same path he'd walked the day he proposed their arrangement. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. The message contained a single photograph. Victoria and Marcus from last night, taken through the hospital window, digitally timestamped, suggesting they'd met while Nathan was with his father. Below it, "Didn't think I'd find you there. Convenient timing. Check your email." Her hands shook as she opened her inbox. The message from Marcus contained a PDF, financial records showing payments from her account to various offshore accounts, fabricated evidence of industrial espionage, all dated within the past 3 weeks. Her phone rang. This time she answered. "Hello, Victoria." Marcus's voice was smooth, satisfied. "Did you get my gift? These documents are fake. Anyone with forensics experience could prove it." "Maybe. But by the time they do, the damage will be done. Nathan's board will see evidence that his new wife has been selling company secrets to Blackstone Dynamics. The merger will fall apart. Cross dynamics will be vulnerable to a hostile takeover. He paused. Unless you give me what I want. What do you want? Walk away. Divorce him quietly. Disappear back to Portland. Do that, and these documents never see the light of day. Victoria's mind raced. Why? Why would Richard waste resources fabricating evidence against me when he could just expose the contract? Marcus laughed, cold and bitter. You really don't know, do you? Richard doesn't care about the contract. He cares about destroying Nathan completely, and the best way to do that is to make him lose the one thing he actually wants, you. I don't understand. Richard's been watching. He saw what I saw at the hospital. That whatever this started as, Nathan's in love with you now. Really in love. The kind that makes men do stupid things. The kind that makes them vulnerable. Marcus's voice softened, became almost gentle. I tried to warn you at the benefit. You're good at pretending to be something you're not. But this time you're not pretending anymore, are you? Victoria's throat tightened. What do you want from me, Marcus? Really want? I want you to save him. Walk away before Richard uses you to destroy everything Nathan's built, because that's what will happen if you stay. Richard will make sure of it. And if I don't, then in 2 hours, every board member, every investor, every media outlet in Seattle will receive these documents. Nathan will spend the rest of his life fighting accusations of corporate espionage. His father's legacy will be ruined, and it will be your fault. The call ended. Victoria stood frozen, the phone heavy in her hand. Through the glass walls, she could see the city Nathan had built his empire in, the life he'd fought so hard to protect. She thought about his father lying in a hospital bed, about the hope in the old man's eyes when he told them to get married. She thought about Nathan's kiss at midnight, the way he'd held her on the balcony like she was something precious. And she thought about the one thing Marcus had been right about. If she stayed, Richard would use her to destroy Nathan. The fabricated evidence, the photographs, the carefully constructed narrative of betrayal. It would never end. Nathan would spend his life fighting battles she'd brought to his door. But if she left, Richard would have no leverage. Nathan could rebuild, could fight his brother on equal footing. Victoria pulled out her phone and composed a text to David Kim. I need you to arrange transportation back to Portland. Immediately. Don't. Tell Nathan. She moved through the penthouse like a ghost, packing only what she'd brought with her. The designer clothes stayed in the closet. The jewelry remained on the dresser. She took off the platinum wedding band and placed it next to Nathan's grandmother's ring, her hands trembling. On the nightstand, she left a handwritten note. I'm sorry. This was always going to end badly. Better now than after Richard destroys everything you've built. The contract is fulfilled. The money is yours to reclaim. Please don't look for me. Some sacrifices are necessary. This is mine. David was waiting in the lobby, his expression devastated. Ms. Cross, please reconsider. Mr. Cross will be destroyed when he finds out you've left. Better destroyed by my leaving than by my staying. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him this was the only way. The car ride back to Portland felt like traveling through a dream. Victoria stared out the window, watching Seattle disappear behind her, taking with it the life she'd briefly imagined she could have. Her phone buzzed continuously. Nathan calling over and over. She turned it off. She was home by early afternoon, back in her tiny shared apartment that smelled of mildew and disappointment. Everything looked exactly as she'd left it 4 weeks ago, as if her time with Nathan had been nothing but an elaborate hallucination. Victoria collapsed on her bed and finally let herself cry. She'd saved him. That's what she told herself. She'd walked away before Richard could use her as a weapon. Nathan would recover, would fight his battles without the complication of a wife who'd brought nothing but trouble. But God, it hurt. It hurt worse than when Marcus had left her, worse than any pain she'd ever known. Because this time, she wasn't the one abandoned. This time, she was the one doing the abandoning. 3 hours later, someone pounded on her door. Victoria opened it to find not Nathan, but Richard Chin. He stood in her doorway wearing a smile that made her blood run cold. Hello, Victoria. May I come in? How did you find me? Please. I've had people watching you since before you met my brother. Did you really think I wouldn't know where you lived? Richard pushed past her into the apartment, his expensive suit incongruous against the shabby furniture. I wanted to thank you personally for making this so much easier than I anticipated. I don't know what you're talking about. don't you? You played your role perfectly. The desperate girl, the fake engagement, the midnight wedding, and then the dramatic exit, leaving my brother heartbroken and vulnerable. Richard's smile widened. The board meeting was spectacular. Nathan tried to explain, tried to show them the marriage certificate, but it doesn't matter. His wife abandoned him after 4 weeks. It makes him look weak, unstable. Exactly what I needed. Horror washed over Victoria. You wanted me to leave. I needed you to leave. Marcus's threats, the fabricated documents, the pressure, all designed to make you think leaving was your only option. And you fell for it beautifully. The documents were real threats. Of course they were. But they were never going to see the light of day. They were leverage to make you run. Because I knew that's what you'd do. People like you always run when things get hard. Richard moved closer. Nathan could have fought the fake engagement revelation. He could have weathered that storm. But his wife abandoning him, leaving him on their wedding day, that destroys him in a way no corporate scandal ever could. Victoria felt sick. She'd played directly into Richard's hands. She'd done exactly what he wanted, and she'd done it believing she was protecting Nathan. I need to go back. Too late. The damage is done. In fact, I'm about to hold a press conference announcing Blackstone's acquisition of Cross Dynamics. Nathan's board voted no confidence this afternoon. He's been removed as CEO. The company his father built is now mine. No. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. You can't do this. I already have. Thanks to you. Richard headed for the door, then paused. If it makes you feel any better, Marcus actually tried to warn you. At the hospital. He told you to walk away, yes. But he meant walk away with Nathan. Disappear together, start over somewhere my reach couldn't extend. But you misunderstood. You thought he meant leave Nathan behind. Richard's laugh was cruel. Turns out Marcus grew a conscience. Pity you didn't trust him enough to understand what he was really saying. He left, and Victoria stood frozen in her apartment, the full weight of her mistake crushing her. She'd sacrificed everything to save Nathan. Instead, she'd destroyed him. Her phone, when she finally turned it back on, showed 47 missed calls from Nathan, 12 from David, 6 from an unknown number that was probably Marcus, and 1 voicemail from Nathan's father. Time stamped 2 hours ago. With shaking hands, Victoria pressed play. Victoria, this is Thomas Cross. I don't know where you are or why you left, but you need to hear this. Richard played you. Whatever he threatened, whatever Marcus said, it was designed to make you run. Nathan needs you, not for the company, not for the merger. For him. Come back, please, before it's too late. The message ended with a soft click. Victoria grabbed her keys and ran for the door. She had to get back to Seattle. Had to find Nathan. Had to tell him she was sorry. That she'd been stupid and scared and wrong. Had to hope it wasn't already too late to fix what she'd broken. The elevator doors opened to Nathan's penthouse floor. Victoria's heart hammered as she approached the door, using the key card David had given her weeks ago, praying it still worked. It did. The penthouse was dark, only the city lights illuminating the space. She found Nathan standing at the same windows where he'd first proposed their arrangement, a glass of scotch in his hand, staring out at the skyline. Nathan. He didn't turn around. David told me you'd come back. I didn't believe him. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought leaving was the only way to keep Richard from destroying everything. You were wrong. Nathan's voice was hollow. Leaving gave him exactly what he needed. The board sees me as unstable now, incapable of maintaining even a marriage. They voted no confidence this afternoon. Your father called me. He told me Richard manipulated me, that Marcus was trying to warn me, not threaten me. Marcus showed up at my office 3 hours ago, resigned from Blackstone, said he couldn't be part of what Richard was doing anymore. Nathan finally turned, and the devastation in his eyes broke her heart. He explained everything. The real plan. How leaving together was supposed to be the solution, not leaving me behind. Victoria crossed the room until she stood directly in front of him. I was so scared of being the weapon Richard used against you that I became one anyway. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you here because you feel guilty? Or because you want to be here? Victoria took the platinum band from her pocket. She'd grabbed it from the nightstand on her way out, unable to leave it behind completely. I'm here because the worst day of my life was today, sitting in that apartment, realizing I'd destroyed the only real thing I've ever had. I'm here because somewhere in the past 4 weeks, I fell in love with you. And I was too scared to admit it until I'd already lost you. She held out the ring. I'm here because I want to fight. Not run, not hide. Fight for you. For us. For whatever we can build from the wreckage. Nathan stared at the ring in her palm, then at her face. Richard has cross dynamics. The board removed me. I have nothing left to offer you. You have you. That's all I ever wanted. Nathan's hand came up to cradle her face, his thumb catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. If we do this, if we try again, I need to know you won't run when things get hard. Because they will get hard, Victoria. Richard won't stop. This war is just beginning. Then we fight it together. Victoria slipped the ring back on her finger where it belonged. No more running. No more sacrifices that destroy us both. Just us, facing whatever comes next. Nathan kissed her then, and it tasted like second chances and hard-won trust. Like the beginning of something built on truth instead of contracts, on choice instead of desperation. When they finally broke apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I have a plan. To take back the company, to beat Richard at his own game. But it's risky, dangerous. It means going to war with someone who has more resources and fewer scruples. Tell me what you need. I need my wife. Not the contracted one, not the fake one. The real one who's just as stubborn and reckless as I am. Victoria smiled through her tears. You have her. You've always had her. Outside the windows, Seattle glittered like a promise. The war wasn't over. Richard still held the company. Marcus's warning had come too late, and the path ahead would be brutal. But standing in Nathan's arms, Victoria realized something Marcus had been right about. She was good at pretending to be something she wasn't. But this time, she wasn't pretending at all. The reckoning 3 months. That's how long it took Nathan to build his counterattack. 3 months of 18-hour days, of meetings with lawyers and investors and board members who'd turned their backs on him. 3 months of Victoria standing beside him, no longer playing a role but living it, learning the business from the inside out until she could speak the language of corporate warfare fluently. 3 months of Richard Chen growing increasingly comfortable in the CEO chair he'd stolen. The evidence they needed came from an unexpected source. Marcus showed up at their door on a rainy Tuesday night, carrying a briefcase that looked like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I need immunity, he said without preamble. Full protection from prosecution, and witness protection for what comes after. Nathan and Victoria sat across from him in the penthouse, the same space where this had all begun, transformed now into a war room. What do you have? Marcus opened the briefcase. Inside were years of documents, emails, recorded conversations, everything. Every illegal move Richard made to take down your father 10 years ago. Every bribe, every threat, every instance of fraud and corporate espionage. I've been documenting it since the beginning, waiting for the right moment. Victoria stared at the man who'd once broken her heart, seeing him clearly for the first time. Why? Why help us now? Because I was 19 when Richard recruited me, told me I was special, that together we'd build something revolutionary. By the time I understood what he really was, I was already complicit, already dirty. Marcus met her eyes. I hurt you because Richard told me to. He knew about Nathan's plan to go public with Cross Dynamics, knew he'd need a stable marriage to satisfy the board. He planted me in your life years ago as insurance. If Nathan ever found someone real, I'd already be there to destroy it. But you didn't, Nathan said quietly. You tried to warn Victoria at the hospital. I tried. Too late, too unclear. But I tried. Marcus pushed the briefcase across the table. This is my penance. Everything you need to prove Richard built Blackstone on fraud and theft, that his acquisition of Cross Dynamics was illegal from the start. You can take back your company and destroy him completely. Nathan's hand found Victoria's under the table, their fingers interlacing. What do you get out of this? A chance to sleep at night, and maybe someday forgiveness. Marcus stood. My lawyer will contact David with the immunity details. After that, I disappear. Richard has people everywhere. Once this goes public, my life won't be worth much. After he left, Victoria and Nathan sat in silence, staring at the briefcase that contained the ammunition to end their war. We could walk away, Victoria said softly. Take what money we have left, start over somewhere else. Build something new without all this blood in the water. Nathan turned to look at her, his green eyes reflecting the city lights. Is that what you want? I want you safe. I want us to have a life that isn't built on revenge and corporate warfare. We'll have that after this is over, after we take back what's ours and make sure Richard can never hurt anyone else the way he hurt my father. Nathan squeezed her hand. But if you want to walk away, if this is too much, I'll understand. You never signed up for this version of our life. Victoria thought about the girl who'd sat in this same penthouse 4 months ago, desperate and lost, agreeing to a fake marriage for money. That girl felt like a stranger now. I signed up for you, whatever that means. The evidence drop was carefully orchestrated. Nathan's lawyers worked with federal prosecutors, building an airtight case. By the time Richard understood what was happening, it was too late. The morning of the board meeting, federal agents arrived at Blackstone Dynamics to arrest Richard Chen on multiple charges of fraud, theft of intellectual property, and corporate espionage spanning a decade. Nathan and Victoria watched from Cross Dynamics headquarters as the news broke across every channel. Richard being led out in handcuffs, his perfectly constructed empire crumbling in real time. Is it wrong that I don't feel satisfied? Nathan asked, his voice hollow. He's my brother. Despite everything, some part of me wishes it hadn't ended this way. Victoria wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. It means you're not him. It means you still have the capacity for mercy he lost years ago. The emergency board meeting was unanimous. Nathan was reinstated as CEO with a formal apology. Cross Dynamics absorbed Blackstone's assets, becoming one of the largest tech companies on the West Coast. They'd won. But the victory felt pyrrhic, hollow. That night, Nathan's father called from the hospital. He'd been recovering slowly, strong enough now for brief conversations. I heard what happened, how you took down Richard. I'm sorry, Dad. I know he was still your son. He stopped being my son the day he chose power over family. You did what had to be done. I'm proud of you. Thomas's voice softened. How's Victoria? Nathan looked across the penthouse to where his wife stood on the balcony, staring out at the city they'd fought so hard to claim. She's the only reason I survived this. The only reason any of it was worth it. Then don't waste any more time on wars that are already won. Build something worth keeping. That's what I should have told you and Richard years ago, that empires don't matter if you have no one to share them with. After hanging up, Nathan joined Victoria on the balcony. The spring air was cool, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. What are you thinking about? He asked. That day you proposed the contract. How desperate I was. How sure I was that 6 months of pretending would fix everything wrong with my life. Victoria leaned against the railing. I had no idea pretending would turn into the most real thing I'd ever experienced. Nathan pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly, fitting against him like she'd always belonged there. No more pretending. No more contracts. Just us figuring out what comes next. And what does come next? I was thinking we take some time away. Travel. See the world. Remember what it's like to live instead of just survive. The company will still be here when we get back. Victoria tilted her head back to look at him, seeing not the billionaire CEO, but the man beneath. The one who'd offered her hope when she had none. The one who'd trusted her when trust seemed impossible. I'd like that. But first, there's something I need to do. 2 weeks later, Victoria stood in the doorway of her childhood home, watching her father walk without pain for the first time in years. The surgery had been successful, the medical bills paid in full. The farm was secure, her parents' future stable. You didn't have to do all this, her father said, though his eyes were wet with gratitude. Yes, I did. You spent your whole life sacrificing for me. It was time I returned the favor. Nathan waited by the car, giving her space to say goodbye. When Victoria finally joined him, her father called out, "Take care of my daughter." "Every day for the rest of my life," Nathan promised. They drove away from Portland as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Victoria reached across the console to take Nathan's hand, their wedding rings catching the light. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "The contract, the chaos, everything that came after?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering. "I regret the pain, the manipulation, the way Richard used both of us as weapons. But the contract itself? He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. That contract brought me you. So no, I don't regret it. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Even knowing how it would end? Especially knowing how it would end. Because it ended with you here, beside me, real and permanent and mine. That's worth any price. Victoria smiled, feeling the last of her fears dissolve into the evening air. They'd been through fire and come out stronger. They'd been strangers bound by paper and transformed into partners bound by choice. The road ahead stretched endlessly, full of possibility and promise. They'd built an empire, taken down enemies, survived betrayals that should have destroyed them. But more than that, they'd built something infinitely more valuable. They'd built trust. They'd built love. They'd built a foundation solid enough to weather any storm that might come. 6 months ago, Victoria Sterling had signed a contract to become a fake wife for money. Today, Victoria Cross drove into the sunset beside her husband, ready for whatever adventure came next. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to, and that made all the difference. The end.